Alrighty then. Volume 4. So what do we got here? Well, it's one of the more interesting volumes by far because of the archetypes that received the support, among which are actually even Egyptian gods, sacred beasts. Noble Knights got a whole boatload of support, and they're actually the biggest part of this episode. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, the funny thing is, after I rounded up the cards for this episode, I already have 7 for volume 5 ready in the box. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about, even though we have 60 cards still, like the usual format. So let's start things off, and the first archetype we're starting with are the Phantom Knights, and their first support is in form of the Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves, which is another excellent choice in our standard run-of-the-mill Phantom Knights rank 3 build. Although this gives some more rank 4 build some love, since you can actually make this card's level become level 4, which is usually level 4 is usually accessed within Phantom Knights due to their trap monsters, which again are some of them are a bit slow to get going if they're not Shade of Brigandine. So yeah, this one gives you the option to do so, and we'll see exactly why when we get to the new extra deck monster they support. But first, let's cover the main deck. The last main deck addition, that is the Phantom Knights of Tear Scale, or Tier Scale. I don't know. It's supposed to be Tear Scale in my book. So yeah, it's a decent hand trap, and it allows again for more versatile rank 3 plays, and of course it allows for some unprecedented swarmings, which is always nice in my book. So yeah, you should run 1 or 2 of each, because they're simply a nice addition to the archetype. And now we move on to the extra deck with Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon. Very clever pun there. But those wings look kind of familiar. Anyway, this one is a rank 5 monster with 3000 attack and 2500 attack. Basically, it's a retrain of Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon, and requires 3 level 5 monsters in order to be summoned, or a rank up magic. This Xyz summon card cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can detach 1 material from this card, and you can only declare an attack with this card for the rest of the turn. Also, it gains attack equal to the combined original attack of all other face-up monsters on the field. Then, if this card has Dark Xyz monster as material, negate the effects of all other face-up monsters on the field. And you can only use this effect once per turn. Yeah, I had to read that effect out loud because it's pretty dang good. It isn't a monster which could outclass Dark Requiem anytime soon, but yeah, both monsters do have their qualities. They're basically like separate options at this point. If you don't know what to do with if you can't do something with Dark Requiem, then you call on to this thing. So yeah, and as you can see from the effect, it is heavily encouraged to summon this with a rank up magic, be it the rank up magic the Phantom Knights launch, or the new rank up magic that they received, which is this thing, rank up magic Phantom Knights Force, a quick play rank up magic, which is honestly the second quick play rank up magic since Quick Chaos, I believe. Anyway, it's a bit interesting, since it allows you to special summon from your extra deck one the Phantom Knight or RAIDRAPTOR or Xyz Dragon Xyz monster that is a number of Xyz ranks higher. Yeah, I'm not going to read the entire effect, but basically it's one of the more unique support waves and cards, because it makes RAIDRAPTORs and the Phantom Knights a 1 archetype, which is a bit weird. I know that Yuto and Shun are kind of best friends, but in the actual show they were on screen for a grand total of 20 minutes. I don't know. They were like operating together in the standard dimension for a few episodes, and then Yuto got absorbed into Yuya, and that's all he wrote. Yeah, it is a bit nonsensical that they went this route to make Raid Raptors and Phantom Knights support each other, but yeah. Also, the way this card special summons is a bit ridiculous because the rank of the monster depends on the number of monsters this thing banishes from the graveyard, which, okay, it is Phantom Knights-ish, if that is even a word, but you usually want to use those Phantom Knights in order to get their effects off because they have amazing graveyard effects. Now, logic would dictate that you would most likely want to use the Raid Raptors for the cause, but again, Raid Raptors and don't usually hit the graveyard that often for this kind of effect to have such an amazing impact. And yeah, you usually do not mash Raid Raptors together with the Phantom Knights because they don't have any proper support to do so. But thankfully we have some new additions to the Raid Raptor arsenal which can help with that. First of which is Raider's Wing. It's a level 4 with 0 attack and 2000 defense, and it's always treated as a Phantom Knights and a Raid Raptor card. Very interesting wording there. And yeah, it's essentially what you would expect from a morph between Raid Raptors and Phantom Knights. It's basically it allows you to special summon it as long as you get to detach an Xyz material from a Dark Xyz monster, which plays into the role of the Phantom Knights having monsters with no material, so they can use their rank up magic on them, which is Phantom Knights Launch. And in turn you get a level 4, whose special summoning condition is, yeah, hard once per turn, but again, it's a nice monster to have around since you can also use him for link materials. But if you actually use him as an Xyz material, it prevents the monster summoned by using him from being targeted by card effects, which is fine, but the monsters you tend to summon or run in this case usually have some sort of that protection effect already built into him, but still it's a good option to have lying around. Now for the Raid Raptor support, which is meant to be like generic Raid Raptor support, I mean regular Raid Raptor support. First of which we have Heal Eagle, which is the second level 3 Raid Raptor since Fiend Eagle. No, Skull Eagle, I keep mixing those two up. So yeah, does that mean that Wild Vulture is now worth it? No, it's not. If all monsters you control are Raid Raptor monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon it. And yeah, this is a very nice special summoning condition. And you can also banish this card from your graveyard. I see more Phantom Knights parallels there, which allows you to target one Raid Raptor spell and trap in your graveyard and basically recycle it. Which is not bad, mind you, but this graveyard effect is most likely added because of the Raid Raptor Phantom Knight synergy, because that will perhaps become a thing later down the road, maybe. But yeah, I see you usually tend to run this in the so-called Phantom Knight Raid Raptor hybrid because Raid Raptors don't usually care about level 3 since there are rank 4 spam archetype, but Phantom Knights on the other hand are much more at home with their rank 3, so you'll tend to run some Raid Raptors which are generic rank 4 enablers, so you'll be able to get this card special summoning condition off a bit easier. So yeah, there's that option if you want to consider, but in a run-of-the-mill Raid Raptor deck, it's not usually recommended unless you're heavy on the link spamming. And there are other Raid Raptor monsters. Is Raid Raptor Strange LANIUS. This one's a level 4, which is something we're more used to at this point. And its summoning condition is a bit better since you can special summon him from your hand if you control a dark monster. And you also cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except dark monsters, which is kind of expected with this effect, but this also gives you some breathing room in terms of what you can summon, since you do not, since the dark monsters do not usually have to be members of the archetypes. So yeah. And if you control an Xyz monster that has a dark Xyz monster's material, you can target a level 4 or lower RAIDRAPTOR monster in your graveyard to special summon it. So basically it enables you to go into additional rank 4s, which is alright since Master Rule 5 is incoming, so you will be making use of this effect a bit more often. So yeah, it's definitely a welcomed addition and a staple in the deck. And now we move on to their final two cards, which is first of which is a counter trap RAIDRAPTOR Phantom Knight's Claw. Yeah, genius. It's an Omni negate. Well, it's a negate of a monster effect, and by detaching a material from a dark Xyz monster you control. And yeah, and if you detach a Phantom Knight's RAIDRAPTOR or Xyz Dragon card, basically anything you can have as an Xyz material when you're playing pure Phantom Knights or RAIDRAPTORs or Xyz Dragon rank ups. You can also upon gain the destroyed monster's original attack on one of your monsters. So yeah, you can only activate one of them per turn, which is kind of acceptable with this kind of effect, but I would have appreciated some more versatility in terms of if you negate a spell or trap card, then you get a bit of a different effect. So you have a bit more versatility in your toolbox when it comes to Omni negates. So it does not hurt to run it, but RAIDRAPTORs and especially Phantom Knights aren't all about the counter traps. So yeah, run by preference, I would say. And the last card in the RAIDRAPTOR and Phantom Knight support line is Raider's Unbreakable Spirit, which is a continuous trap, and it is always treated as a Phantom Knights and a RAIDRAPTOR card. And it allows you to if you Xyz summon using a dark Xyz monster you control as a material, to target one card on the field and destroy it, which does not sound bad at all, but this is again more applicable in RAIDRAPTORs because they're usually more about the ranking up, while the Phantom Knights usually don't pull off that many rank up magic summons, because they only have 2 monsters as of this video to go around, and one of their rank up magics was banned. So yeah, you kind of get where I'm going with this statement. And if this face-up card is in the spell and trap zone, is destroyed by a card effect, you can set one rank up magic spell directly from your deck or graveyard to your field, and you can only use each effect of Raider's Unbreakable Spirit, Unbreakable Mind once per turn. Yeah, the rank up searching is really sweet, but yeah, since we don't have Argent Chaos Force anymore, if Argent Chaos Force was around, I could see some serious Xyz shenanigans being pulled off here. So yeah, maybe popping this card yourself in order to trigger that search. Yeah, you can basically perform some sick combos by using this thing's floating effect in order to search out Argent Chaos Force, maybe Numeron Force, or basically the archetypal stuff. So yeah, there's potential to mess around with it if we had some proper tools to do so. So yeah. And that would conclude the RAIDRAPTORs and the Phantom Knight support, which is okay, but I really did not expect to go with the comboing route. I thought Shooting Star Dragon Tech Genex expansion was bad, but oh boy, I really did not expect that. But again, if Jamas are anything to go by, we should have expected something like this then. I don't know, let me know, did you expect something like this? Because I sure as hell did not. And now we move on to the next archetype that received support, which are FRIGHTFURs and FLUFFALs. And yeah, we don't have much to talk about here, only We have only 5 cards worth of support, and it's pretty straightforward. SCYTHE is basically an archetypal DD Swirl Slime with a protection effect instead of a recovery swarm effect. FLUFFAL Dolphin is basically incentivizes you and encourages you to base your builds more on the FLUFFAL Wing draw power, since it allows you to recycle Toy Vendor from your graveyard. And yeah, it's a decent level 4, and you can use these two as materials for FRIGHTFUR Cruel Whale, which is one of their new fusion monsters. Well, their only new fusion monster as of now. Requires an Edge Imp monster and a FLUFFAL monster as material, so very, very generic and user friendly there. And yeah, it's essentially an archetypal Scrap Dragon on summon, which it really shows. And of course, it also shares some similarities with what was the name? FLUFFAL Kraken. Yeah, that's the one I was going for. Not exactly, but in a way that it's about a quick beatdown, as some of you might know. FLUFFAL Kraken can attack twice in the same battle phase, while this thing is more about hogging the attack values for itself. So yeah, a different flavor of FLUFFAL Kraken, I would say. So yeah, is it worth running? Of course it is. The 2 new main deck additions make it very easy to summon. So yeah, it's definitely a monster you should make space for in your extra deck. And next up we have their new spell card, which is FRIGHTFUR Repair, which it's basically this is basically used to set up new fusions as a comeback enabler, which is honestly pretty cool. But you can also, of course, use it for play extension as well, since it does not hurt to have this as an option for, again, play extension and setting up board with terrifying monsters with huge attack values. So yeah, definitely run 2 or 3 of these. And the final card that they received is FRIGHTFUR Vendor, which is the exact same thing as Toy Vendor, only for Edge Imp monsters, and instead of special summoning monsters, you get to pop cards on the field. So yeah. And when it gets sent to the graveyard, its floating effect is basically a Gale the Whirlwind for the archetype, as opposed to the other one being a consistency booster. Yeah, it's definitely a different flavor of Toy Vendor, and I would have loved it a bit more if it wasn't a trap card, but still, it's a decent one-off, if anything. And that would conclude the FRIGHTFUR lineup of support. And yeah, I honestly believe that FRIGHTFUR's had the best deal so far when it comes to new archetypal support. It's not as how should I say, convoluted as the new Phantom Knight support, but they actually stuck to their guns and stuck to their original playstyles and everything, and which basically meant that they would get the support that was the best representative of a set playstyle. And yeah, it's basically some additional tools of the well-established arsenal that we've reviewed in the original archetype analysis of these guys. So yeah, they're really nice, and I really like the new support that they received. I especially like FLUFFAL Dolphin and SCYTHE as a very nice quick way to get your fusions out. And I also failed to mention that FLUFFAL Dolphin can also recycle polymerizations or fusion spells, which is another great utility for our level 4 monsters of its caliber. And FRIGHTFUR Cruel Whale is nothing too amazing, since we've basically seen many beatsticks of his caliber, but the on-summon removal is something I would actually really want to compliment once again. If you don't have enough materials for a FRIGHTFUR Tiger, and you don't want to waste a summon of a FRIGHTFUR Tiger on just 2 removals, you can instead just summon this and maybe set up a FRIGHTFUR Tiger later on if your opponent has more stuff to pop. So yeah, the options are there, and it's all about you if you want to take them or not. And yeah, next up we have JINZO in the line of support. Now JINZO, oh boy, he went on a really hard rampage, because he actually gathered some stuff which wasn't even us the member. The stuff belonged to the archetype. Yeah. What he did is he went the Ojama route and basically took some cards which weren't a part of the archetype and made it into the archetype. First of which is Reflect Bounder, which is a very, very outdated magic cylinder. And yeah, that's about as far as it goes. But next up we have Psycho Bounder, because yeah, it's certainly something. Well, it's an on-summon archetypal elemental hero Stratos, which I really appreciate because Jinzo usually tended to be stuck with consistency since Witch of the Black Forest got banned, and when it got unbanned, it wasn't exactly what they could use again and again. So new support was very much needed. So Psycho Bounder comes to save the day with his nice elemental hero Stratos like search effect, which also searches Jinzo spell and trap cards, which okay, there aren't much of, but still it's nice to have the option. And oh, it's basically a Mirror Force retrain of Reflect Bounder. So yeah, which one is better? I believe Psycho Bounder is a bit better because Mirror Force is a better overall trap card than Magic Cylinder, but still, there's absolutely no reason to run the original since we have the retrain, which does more than the original by default. So yeah. And the second monster that the Jinzo has inherited into his family is the Fiend MEGACYBER, which is a outdated beatstick which can be special summoned if your opponent controls at least 2 more monsters than you do, which I honestly was a very nice special summoning condition for a monster back in the day, but nowadays it is very outdated, as you'd want to most likely special summon monsters which have special summoning conditions that do not rely on your opponent to do stuff. So yeah. Now for the retrain. Psycho GIGACYBER is a bit different, as it allows you to special summon him if your opponent controls more spell and traps than you do, and you can only special summon him from the hand, of course, and you can only special summon one of him per turn. And when this card declares an attack on an opponent's effect monster while you control Jinzo, you can tribute this card and place that opponent's monster in your opponent's spell and trap zone as a face-up continuous trap card, and you can only use this effect of Psycho GIGACYBER once per turn. And yeah, you might be thinking, what the hell is this supposed to even be? Yeah, you can only special summon him once per turn this way, and he battles monsters by turning them into continuous trap. Yeah, it's supposed to set up the place for the original, for the Jinzo Lord, the outdated boss monsters, and 2 of their new support cards. So yeah, on its own, this card does not make that much sense other than being a special summonable beatstick, which of course can be used for a rank 6 engine or a link material if you whatever so desire. Anyway, next up we have a level 7 monster, which is the Menacing Jinzo, the retrain of the original. And I have some problems with this thing. Check this thing out. If a trap is on the field, you can special summon him, but its level becomes 6. Why? Why did they have to do this? The effect is mandatory. If it was like, then you can lower this card's level to level 6, I wouldn't have said anything, because the effect would have been optional, and you would basically be given a choice of whether you want to focus on rank 6 builds or go for the way more popular rank 7 builds. Like this, I'm sorry, rank 7 is one of the better ranks in the game. The archetype receives a special summonable level 7 monster, and now you have to waste a Forbidden Chalice in order to turn him back into a level 7 monster? Come on, that's just pushing it. Anyway, it has an additional effect that during the main phase quick effect you can tribute this card to special summon a Jinzo from your hand or graveyard, and then you can destroy all traps your opponent controls. And if those cards are set, reveal them, and you can only use each effect of the menacing Jinzo once per turn. So yeah, this is what Psycho GIGACYBER's effect was building up to, and it's basically anticlimactic in the most how should I say, in the most predictive way as possible. And yeah, I mean, it works for the archetype, and this card does what the archetype does best, which is pop trap cards. But I still can't get over the goddamn summoning condition. This could have easily gotten Jinzo's access to rank 7 plays, which would have actually opened up a toolbox for some of the cards, which would help out the archetype immensely if they could be included in the Jinzo toolbox. But no, they need to keep the rank 6 engine alive, and yeah, that's basically what's most important to them. Stack up on those gauntlet launchers though. Anyway, you can stack up on those gauntlet launchers, or you can use the new monster of the archetype, which is Jinzo Lair, which is a rank 6 monster with this effect. You can detach one material from this card and target one face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, but it cannot activate its effects nor attack, and if a trap is on the field you contribute a monster, and if you do, destroy one face-up card on the field. You can only use each effect of Jinzo Lair once per turn. This guy has some interesting ideas, to say the least, but I personally think it's entirely outclassed by number 11 Big Eye in that regard, since number 11 Big Eye does not shut down the effects of the monster it steals, and the removal effect is cute but ultimately irrelevant, since you'll most likely want to use some other stuff in order to pop cards on the field. So yeah, it remains there as an option if you want to experiment with it, but otherwise it's a decent one-off, I guess. The card's not bad, it is just not what I was looking for in a Jinzo build. And next up we have their spell and trap lineup, first of which we have Cyber Energy Shock, which is the signature attack for Jinzo, and it's a nice quick play, and it allows you to negate the effects of one face-up card on the field until the end of this turn, or boost the attack of all Jinzos by 800. Now obviously you'll be activating the first effect all the freaking time, because Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss is just that good of a card. And yeah, you'll most likely want to have that kind of effect all the time, because negating the effects of one face-up card can be really crucial in especially in late games, since it can edge you closer to victory. So yeah, it's also searchable by new support, so running a copy of two of these doesn't tend to hurt. And next up we have Law of the Cosmos, another spell card in the lineup with the most baffling artwork out there, and it's also baffling in terms of the effect, because on activation it allows your opponent to set one trap card directly from their hand or deck to the spell and trap zone, and if they do, you special summon a Jinzo from your deck. Otherwise you can add one Jinzo or monster that specifically lists that name in its text from your deck to your hand, and you can only activate one of these per turn. So it's something I honestly did not expect, which is a red reboot which can search cards out for you. So yeah, and of course special summoning a Jinzo directly from the deck does sound appealing, but the fact that you're freely allowing your opponent to pick a trap card and set it right onto the field, which again can be red reboot, which I already mentioned, which can mess you up big time, and you can also, the opponent can also search out infinite impermanence, which can also destroy the selected Jinzo you selected to summon. So yeah, a bit of a flimsy cause there, my dudes. What can I say? I mean, run by preference if you really want to. And now we move on to At One with the Universe. Alright. And next, and it's a continuous spell which allows you to send a monster you control that is owned by your opponent to the graveyard to special summon a machine monster from your hand or graveyard. When your opponent draws for their normal draw in their draw phase while you control Jinzo, you can declare one type of card, monster, spell, and trap, reveal the card that you drew, and if this is the declared type, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, draw one card. You can only use each effect of that one with the universe once per turn. Okay, what the hell happened here? I thought this was supposed to be a Jinzo support card, not Synchro Up Psychic support card. Yeah, I have no idea what happened either, because this card does not support the archetype in the slight. At least Law of the Cosmos at least tried to make itself a part of the Jinzo archetype, but this is basically a misprinted Synchro Up Psychic support card, and someone slapped a Jinzo in its effect text, which, yeah, the Jinzo was supposed to initially say if you control a Psychic type monster. I honestly believe it like that, because nothing in this effect screams Jinzo support in any way. You're better off avoiding this one. And next up we have Special DITITANIUM Metal. Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? It's a nice generic machine support card, but the name just straight up does not make sense at all. If the Jinzo was not in this card's artwork, I honestly would not believe that this is a Jinzo support card. Yeah, you need to control a Jinzo in order to activate this card. So I guess that works, but yeah, if it wasn't for the Jinzo in the artwork and the effect text, this is I would not consider this a Jinzo support card at all. It's just that baffling. Sure, run it because it's very nice support for both Jinzos and machine-based decks, but other than that, it is not a Jinzo support card at all. Not in the name, and yeah, it's really that baffling. Wouldn't you have been? If it would really be nice to have been, it would be really nice to have called this card literally anything else than this, because I can think of a better name. Judging by the artwork, why not call it Jinzo the Time Overlord or something like that, or Jinzo Reflector Ray or something like that. Yeah, the artwork even references the Reflector unit from Star Fox. I believe that's what he was called, Reflector Beam or something like that. You could have called it like that, but I have no idea. Let's just move on to the next archetype. And as for the next archetype, Flower Cardians are next, with only 2 cards worth of support, and they are actually from Collection Pack 2020, so this won't take too long. Flower Cardian Cherry Blossom is just your run-of-the-mill Flower Cardian monster. It's about as welcome as all the other monsters in the lineup. It's a level 3 warrior searchable by Rhoda, which means you're bound to get some uses out of him. And as for their other card, which is super all-in, and it's basically an archetypal desynchro with the usual Flower Cardian gimmick, although its second effect can be a bit over-destructive at first, but you know, it takes some practice to get used to it, and that's about it. And yeah, and just like that, we're done with Flower Cardians. I told you this wouldn't take too long. And now we move on to the Egyptian gods who got the new support lineup. And yeah, they also adapted a few cards into their arsenal due to lore, and the first of which is Gem Breeding Machine. It's a continuous spell that allows you to, during each of your standby phases, special summon a slime token, which is 500 attack and defense. It's a Aqua type water level 1 monster, and it special summons an attack position, and you cannot summon any monsters except slime tokens, but you can still set. So yeah, this basically screams early Yu-Gi-Oh! Token spawner. And the saddest thing is you cannot even use this during goat formats because it prevents you from summoning other monsters besides setting. So yeah, it's really not worth running nowadays. And next up we have Reactor Slime, which is basically the monster which is responsible for pulling gem breeding machine into the archetype. And has the effect that during your main phase you can special summon 2 slime tokens, which are also of the same stats as the gem breeding machines tokens. And you also cannot normal or special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except divine beast monsters, which is accepted since this is an Egyptian god monster support. And during the battle phase you contribute this card and to set a metal reflex slime directly from your hand, deck or graveyard to your spell and trap zone. It can also be activated this turn, and of course you can only use each effect once per turn, and the latter effect is a quick effect. So yeah, it's essentially what it seems like, and we'll get to that metal reflect slime soon enough. But yeah, this is basically meant to be an easy token monster spawner for you to be able to summon the Egyptian gods on a whim, or their new fusion monster, which we'll get into later. But yeah, it's perfectly serviceable, a bit, how should I say, unstable, but some of their newer spell and trap lineup makes it alright to consider, but Ra's Disciple, especially when paired up with their new spell and trap lineup, makes this card so obsolete. Next up we have Guardian Slime, which is a level 10 monster, and has 0 attack and defense, and has the following effect. If you take battle or effect damage, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can have this card gain defense equal to that opponent's monster's attack during damage calculation only. And if this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 spell or trap that specifically lists the Winged Dragon of Ra and its text from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Guardian Slime once per turn. Okay, I get that I want to support the Winged Dragon of Ra because, let's face it, it's the worst Egyptian god by default, since it was pretty much determined to be the worst Egyptian god card ever, even back in its conceptual days when the original was coming into the real game. But still, the only thing this ends up doing is just gives people to more merit to construct casual Winged Dragon of Ra decks, which are still not going to be very good. And it makes Horakthi, however you call her nowadays, players a bit easier time of getting Ra onto the field, so you can sack him in order to get Horakthi onto the field and win the game. So yeah. And why is this thing a level 10 monster with such obnoxious stats? Well, let's first cover Metal Reflex Slime, which has been mentioned before. Basically, it's a trap monster, which is a level 10 aqua water monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense. And this card is still also a trap card. And this card cannot attack. Yeah, I mean, no shit with defense, with attack 0 and defense 3000. But it's still a bit weird to see a trap monster which cannot attack, which was, I mean, this was one of the first trap monsters ever to grace the game, but its importance is a bit more out there. What is it? Alright, you know this was coming. Egyptian God Slime is a level 10 Aqua Fusion monster with 3000 attack and defense, requires an Aqua monster and a level 10 Water monster, which only exists in form of Metal Reflex Slime and Guardian Slime, mind you, in form of main deck monsters, which you most likely will be using to summon this thing, because the other level 10 water monsters are usually tied to very specific archetypes, such as Big Whale, for example. Well, actually Big Whale I think is a level 9, but still. Must first be either fusion summoned or special summoned from your extra deck by attributing one level 10 aqua monster with 0 attack, in which case you do not use polymerization, and this card can be treated as 3 tributes for the tribute summon of a monster, and it also cannot be destroyed by battle. Your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Also, their monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this thing. I should have said except Egyptian god slime like it says in the effect text, but it will not make any more difference because you won't be running this. Jesus Christ, what were they thinking? Okay, so this is a unique card in a way that it's the first card ever to be capable of treating itself as 3 tributes for the tribute summon of a monster, which is a bit overpowered. Well, not a bit, because usually monsters which requires 3 tributes are how should we put it? Not exactly the most versatile and consistent out there, and are barely searchable. So I think that's the biggest balance here. Sure, you can summon the Egyptian god cards with these things, but other than the Winged Dragon of Ra, you're not going to be summoning anything else, because all the other ones can be special summoned no problem, while the OG Winged Dragon of Ra cannot be special summoned at all, and has a ludicrous amounts of support cards specifically dedicated to bringing him out. And this one continues the legacy. So yeah, this is by far the last slime you want your extra deck to be clogged up with. So unless you really are into this effect, and unless you really like running Metal Reflux Slime and turning it into a level 10 fusion monster for whatever reason, I say avoid this one. Next up we have their Spell and Trap support. First of which is Ancient Chant, which straight up allows you to add the Winged Dragon of Ra from your deck or graveyard to your hand. How handy! And if you do during your main phase this turn, you can tribute summon 1 monster in addition to your normal summoner set. Yeah, we know where this is going. And it also has a decent graveyard effect where you can banish it, and if you tribute the Winged Dragon of Ra this turn, after you resolve this effect, its original attack and defense will become the combined original attack and defense of all the monsters tributed for its tribute summon, straight up giving the Winged Dragon of Ra its anime effect, which I'm really puzzled to why they didn't give that kind of effect to him in the first place. Yeah, I mean, it would have maybe possibly seen a ban list in some form or fashion because of it, but it would make summoning the Winged Dragon of Ra a whole lot more satisfying, since his attack points, like we all know, are given to him by sacking your own life points, and all it takes is 1 Sparks Burn card in order to send you off to your grave. So yeah, this card kind of circumvents that, as well as the next card, which is the Millennium Revelation, which allows you to send a Divine Beast monster from your hand to the graveyard in order to add a Monster Reborn from your deck to your hand, and you can send this card from your Spell and Trap zone to the graveyard this turn, and you can special summon the Winged Dragon of Ra from your graveyard with Monster Reborn specifically, ignoring its summoning condition, but you must send it to the graveyard during the end. Yeah, this also gives Ra its anime effects, part of its anime effects. Basically, makes Ra just like the original, just like all the other god cards in terms of how it can be summoned. I'm just wondering, why don't they just freaking retrain the Winged Dragon of Ra and give him the effects already built into him, rather than wasting our pack space with simply giving him these kinds of effects in multiple cards worth of back row. So yeah, I'm still waiting for that Fortune Lady support. More on that later. But anyway, yeah, it's fun if you want to build your deck around the Winged Dragon of Ra, because that's what most of the God card support amounts to, just supporting the decrepit old Winged Dragon of Ra, which is still not going to see competitive play outside of Sphere mode. But hey, at least the artwork is pretty, if I can give it that. I know it's not the best thing to do that, but anyway, next up we have the final spell card, which is Blazed Cannon, which due to his name makes it searchable by freaking volcanic rocket. Let that sink in. Anyway, because this card is always treated as a Blaze Accelerator card for whatever reason. It's kind of like Celestial Soul Radiato is always treated as a Noble Arms card, even though it's not part of the Noble Knights Archetype. Anyway, it's a fine little signature attack card. It's actually the first signature attack card for an Egyptian god card, and I didn't honestly think that Ra would be getting the first one. And just like I said with the previous rant, Winged Dragon of Ra outside of the Sphere mode still isn't going to see competitive play. Maybe some niche casual play with all these support cards that have graced him ever since he came out. But still, if one Egyptian god card deserves some support, it should be SCYTHE, but the Sky Dragon, because of its crimson red color scheme, you know, judging by my preferences and whatnot. I'm really beating a dead horse here. But essentially, SCYTHE the Sky Dragon is basically a somewhat unstable boss monster, main deck boss monster of Fortune Ladies in some build, and yeah, I can really see why. They have amazing draw power, and draw power is something that SCYTHE the Sky Dragon really likes. And yeah, I'd actually like to see some support centered around on the other Egyptian gods. Maybe SCYTHE, Obelisk, who is still, despite my overflowing love of SCYTHE the Sky Dragon and his red color scheme, is the best Egyptian god, because let's face it, most of his anime effects did carry over into the real life. So yeah. But before we end this off, we have one more card to look at in the Egyptian god lineup, and that is the one with the Sun Deity, which is a continuous trap, which says that if you control a monster whose original name is the Winged Dragon of Ra, you can activate this card the turn it was set. During the main phase, you can pay life points, so you only have 100 left. One special summon the Winged Dragon of Ra you control gains attack and defense equal to the amount of life point paid. And once per turn, you contribute the one Winged Dragon of Ra and gain life points equal to the attack it had on the field. And you cannot activate these effects in the same chain. Okay, what the hell is going on? The first effect is literally the summon effect of the Winged Dragon of Ra, while the second effect again gives him its anime effect. Why? Why are they wasting our pack space with this garbage? I don't know what to do anymore. Why not retrain the Winged Dragon of Ra and give him some of these effects built in by default, instead of wasting our time with these pointless cards? I'm really at a loss for words here. But thankfully, we are done with the Egyptian god cards. And next we have Sacred Beast. Yeah, they also received some support, but thankfully nowhere near as much as the original god cards. Only 4 cards to go, so yeah. And first of which we start off with Chaos Core, which was an anime exclusive monster for a while. And yeah, it's essentially a level 3 which can dodge and battle destruction, so yeah, and effect destruction. But the way it does things is by dumping the Sacred Beast into the graveyard, which honestly does work with the intended nature of a trap card they received, but it's a bit too much too much setup, and you other than protection for this thing, you do not gain anything from having the from Sacred Beasts in your graveyard. However, a much better option would be Chaos Summoning Beast, which is a 3-off staple in like everything Sacred Beast related. It's part of the new Sacred Beast structure deck, and yeah, it basically kickstarts your plays. And yeah, it's essentially a necessity if you want to do anything with this deck. And the other card they received is the 7 Spirit Gates Unleashed. Also a nice playstyle, since you on summon you get all of the 3 Sacred Beasts, but in terms of how you get them, yeah, it's all the original Sacred Beasts, because it only works on the original Raviel and not the retrain we got some time ago. And the second effect kind of makes up for it, which is alright. It can also be used as fuel in order to summon Hamon, so yeah, it's not the worst thing to have around. And lastly, the trap card I mentioned earlier, Sacred Beast Awakening, which Chaos Core synergizes with. It's an okay kind of lockdown, but you'd most likely want to set them all in the graveyard at the same time by summoning Armital, the Chaos Phantom, with the new spell card, or even better, the Phantasm Lord Triojlik, or however he was called, which requires 3 level 10 monsters in order to be fused. But anyway, yeah, that was it for the Sacred Beast. It usually, they certainly got the better deal in terms of new support than the Egyptian God cards, which chose to focus on just one specific monster. I'm not going to let that go because of how stupid that is. All of the Sacred Beasts got some love, even though that Raviel is the most commonly used one and Uriah is the least used one. Hamon sees play occasionally in some various decks which utilize too many continuous spell cards, but Raviel is still the star of the show because of the numerous Fiend support the Archetype has received, and all of their other monsters are easy to summon Fiends, which can even boost their consistency and everything else. So it would make sense. Raviel even has a retrain, which really just shows you how much the production team really cares for Raviel and his way of playing. And now we move on to Gaia, the Fierce Knight / BLS. Well, it should be that only Gaia received the new support. Well, actually, it's 1 card worth of support and 1 card I forgot to talk about during the initial review. Origin Gaia, the Fierce Knight, is gimmicky level 4. It's a gimmicky level 4 in terms of special summoning condition, but everything else is okay. The second effect is just alright. Could have been better, could have been worse. It's just in the middle for me, and yeah, it basically gives Gaia's low-level, high attack options because yeah, and it basically also acts as an archetypal Ragna 0, which is cool, but pardon my pun again. But it's not necessarily what I was looking for. In Gaia builds, I was personally more interested in giving them maybe a rank 7 monster, which isn't the Gaia Piercing Dragon, maybe something akin to, I don't know, every single other quality-based rank 7 monster out there, such as Dracosac or Big Eye, or I don't know, there are just so many of them at this point. And the card I forgot to talk about is Exchange of Night and Day, which is just a gimmicky Call of the Haunted card. Let's just move on to the next archetype that received some love, also in form of 2 cards, and those are the Legendary Dragons. Well, not exactly them, but a set of cards which they pulled in as their family upon being pronounced an archetype. First of which we have the younger brother of 1000 Dragon, that being 100 Dragon. It's a level 4 dragon with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, and once per turn during your main phase you can activate this effect until the end of the turn. Increase its card's level by the number of cards you control, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to its level increase times 100, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck. The first time that face-up monster will be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not destroyed, and you can only use this effect of 100 dragon once per turn. Oh boy, I know I said something about Fortune Lady support, again more on that later, but this really feels more like a Fortune Lady support card than a Legendary Dragon support card. He just stumbled onto the Legendary Dragons setup when they were discussing new archetypes, and they said, yeah, this will do, look at him, he's so tough and mean, look at that smug, like he's proud of what he's supposed to be, but yeah, I'm really pushing it too far. It's an okay card if you really want to run it, but I would not bother with it personally. There are just so many better options. And same can be said with for Time Magus, which is a level 5 with 2000 attack and 1900 defense, requires a Time Wizard and an effect monster as material, and it's literally just a stronger version of the anime version of the original Time Wizard, meaning you especially don't need this thing to clog up your extra deck space. You can summon him with instant fusion if you'd like, but come on, what's the point? And that would do it for the legendary dragons. And the next archetype that received new support is IGNISTER. Yay! I like those. And the two cards that they received are Gusari at IGNISTER and GATCHIRI at IGNISTER. So yeah, kind of expected that when one would be released, the other would follow suit, because they're essentially designed to interact with each other. When Gusari is a link monster, when a link monster is destroyed by battle, you can special summon him from your hand, and when your link monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that opponent's monster's original attack, and when an attack is declared involving your link monster and an opponent's monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Each battling monster's attack becomes 3000, and you can only use each effect of Gusari at IGNISTER once per turn. A decent way to introduce a new spice of life in the battle phase of IGNISTERs, especially since he's a level 8, which can be sent to the graveyard with trade-in for more consistency, and basically to set up the graveyard for the second effect to go off. I'd say it's pretty good. It's very good, in fact, but it's way better with GATCHIRI at IGNISTER. This one has 0 attack, unlike the Gusari, and the first time each Cyberse monster you control will be destroyed by a card effect, each turn it is not destroyed. You can only use the following effects of GATCHIRI at IGNISTER once per turn. You can target a Cyberse effect monster you control, negate its effects, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is sent from your field to the graveyard, you can target a face-up monster you control. That target is unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Yes, you heard that right. The second effect literally allows you to target any face-up monster you control and make it unaffected by everything your opponent can throw at it. What is this? I love it. It's a support card done right. And not to mention that the effect is so simple to activate. You just have to send it from the field to the graveyard, which is so easy to do, since we live in a heavily link-focused era. And not to mention that you can also special summon this thing really easily, and way easier than Gusari at IGNISTER, which requires you to destroy something with a link monster. And with this thing, you simply have to target any Cyberse effect monster and negate its effects in order to special summon it, which is a really easy and nice thing to do. GATCHIRI should always be run at 3, while the ratios of Gusari are usually at 1 or 2. Maybe 3 if you really value the graveyard effect and run trade-in for some consistency boosting. And yeah, I personally like to see the rest of the at IGNISTER archetype come into fruition, and with these two added to the game, that is essentially all of their main deck monsters from the anime are adapted into the game. The only monster they're missing is Darkvite at IGNISTER, which is a Link 1 mini version of Dark Templar at IGNISTER. And of course, some of their spell and trap cards are still missing, such as I Mine, Time Technique, Eyes Him, High, just to name a few. So yeah, I'd definitely like to see more at IGNISTERs. And now we move on to one of the bigger inclusions in the game, in this volume of Archetype Rematch. I think it's the biggest. And it's the semi-final archetype we're looking at today, and those are Noble Knights. They received some new support, a plethora of new support. And I gotta be honest, they're actually really sticking to their guns with this one, because they're making a full-on, they're going through full throttle with the Flame Noble Knight playstyle, which basically started becoming a thing when someone started experimenting with Noble Knights and the new Flame Gearfried support. So that gave someone an idea to just flat out make the new Noble Knight support fire warriors in order to, you know, make them more to spark some new flames into their life and make them more relevant and fun to handle. Their synchros, everything. Yeah, they gave them a lot more synchros, just probably to balance out the fact that they have a lot more Xyz monsters as of now. But anyway, let's start off with Flame Noble Knight Astaflo. Look at that smug. Anyway, you can banish a Fire Warrior monster from your hand or graveyard in order to special summon him, which is really nice and very generic. Not that generic, but it gives Noble Knight some third-party versatility options in terms of what they can banish. It's not exactly Royal Firestorm Guard's level of proficiency in terms of graveyard setup and graveyard control, but it's still nothing to scoff at. Anyway, it's a decent special summoning condition. You can make this card's level become the banished monster's level, which is something... It's fine. You'll most likely be banishing a level 4 monster in order to keep up with the rank 4 spam nature of the original Noble Knights, or in order to get this card's level into a level which you might need for your Synchro toolbox. The choices are yours and yours alone. You can banish this card from your graveyard as well, and during your second standby phase after this effect was activated, you can special summon this banished card, and you can special summon one of your Fire Warrior monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. And yeah, this is basically the worst part of this card. Why the second standby phase? This isn't like Drill Warrior. In fact, Drill Warrior is miles better than this, as he can allow you to recycle any monster back into your hand. Yeah, I know, but at least he was very generous with what he can pull. He, however, is basically an insult to modern Yu-Gi-Oh! On how the duels in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Are supposed to go, which are fast-paced, quickly over duels, which usually end off after, I believe, 1 or 2 to 3 turns, maybe even turn 4. And yeah, by the time you get to pull off the second effect, the duel will most likely be over. And yeah, this thing is not even a tuner monster in order to maybe validate such an effect, in order to get you quick access to some... Ow! And I bit my tongue there for a second. Ow! And yeah, he does not provide that kind of utility since he's not a tuner. He can always bring up a tuner, but the fact that they only have one tuner in form of their Flame Noble Knight lineup is a bit sad. So yeah, not recommended. Yeah, I mean, you can run a few of them just because of the special summoning condition, but that's just about it. Next up, we have Flame Noble Knight Ogier, or Ogier, or whatever. Ogier, I believe that's what he was supposed to be called. Anyway, a monster equipped with this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Okay, so we're getting into some sick violent shit and shenanigans going on here. And you can only use each of the following effects of Flame Noble Knight Ogier once per turn. If it is normal or special summon, you can send a Fire Warrior monster or one Noble Arms card from your deck to your graveyard. Okay, some nice decent graveyard setup there. Except himself, of course. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a one Warrior monster you control, equip this card to that target. So that's how the first effect makes sense. Yeah. It gives some violent-styled protection. Well, this guy taps into his inner Violon spirit and proceeds to give his fellow comrades equip-based protection effects, which again, it's cute, and if you really want to, there is that option that you can build some backup plans using this thing as a protection backup plan, like I already stated. But the real meat is basically its summon effect, where you basically get a graveyard setup of any Noble Arms card or a Fire Warrior monster, which again is mostly limited to Flame Noble Knights or maybe the Gear Freeds, the Flame Gear Freeds, but still it gives the classic Noble Knights some room to breathe, as it also can affect the Noble Arms, which you might want to recycle later on. And next up we have Flame Noble Knight Mayugis. Okay, Mojis. Okay, that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. These names are awfully French-like for some reason. It has the same equip-based protection, but only for battle, just like Ogier. And you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If it is sent to the graveyard, you can shuffle 3 of your other Fire Warrior monsters and/or Noble Arms cards that are banished and/or in your graveyard into the deck, and then draw 1 card, which is actually a nice utility and a recovery effect, if you ask me. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, the equip effect. So yeah, a different flavor of Ogier, and overall a decent, different kind of effect. Basically, the two are the same, the two sides of the same coin. Ogier sets up the graveyard, and Flame Noble Knight Maugi, yeah, or Maugis, whatever. I'm gonna call him Maurice from now on. Basically acts like the graveyard janitor and swoops up the pieces you just sent there in order to give you that lovely +1. So yeah, not bad in terms of consistency, but in overall practicality, yeah, it's fine. Not the best, but it's a bit on the flimsy side to be considered really, how should I say, A+ in terms of effect design. But yeah, I guess there are worse things to come around. I'm not a big expert on warrior-based decks, and especially Noble Knights. So this is not my strong suit area of expertise. So yeah, but I'm trying my best to deduce the quality of a card. And the last main deck monster is Flame Noble Knight Olivier, and thank God you actually have a name which I can pronounce correctly and easily. And he also happens to be a tuner. Nice. And of course your opponent cannot target a monster equipped with this card with card effects, which is again the same kind of protection effect that the rest of the 3 had. And its 2 effects, which can only be activated once per turn, are the following. You can send 1 Fire Warrior monster or 1 equipped spell from your hand or face up from the field to the graveyard in order to special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, its level becomes 1, which is perfectly fine for a tuner. And the second effect is the equip effect. So nothing out of the ordinary for a tuner here. He also happens to be searchable by Rhoda. So yeah, among all the tuners I've seen in the Noble Knight archetype, this is by far the best and the most splashable, and you should always run 3 of them. Now, for what would you like to use this tuner? Obviously, they're synchro monsters. We have 2 to go around. First of which we have Flame Noble Knight Vanguard Roland, which is a level 5 monster with 2000 attack and 500 defense. It requires a tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters, and if this card is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect, which allows you to, during the end phase of this turn, send an equipped card from your deck to the graveyard. Then it allows you to add any warrior monster from your deck to your hand, which I already love just from the sound of it, because warrior is the most plentiful monster type in the game. And it also has a quick effect that allows you to target a warrior monster you control and equip this card to that target as an equip spell, and that makes it gain 500 attack. Good lord. I was just praising you, and then you just have to I don't know, 500 mere attack points for a level 5 synchro monster. Okay, it's not unusual, I'll give it that, but it's certainly one of the most disappointing second effects you could ever have. The first effect, the dude was literally on fire with the first effect. It allowed him to, yeah, it was during the end phase, but it allowed him to search out any warrior monster in existence, which already for Noble Knights is a very commendable task. It's kind of like Gen X Neutron, really, in terms of how that practicality goes. So yeah, I was really impressed with that, and I would actually advise you running 2 or 3 of these just because of that effect. And if you, because his level is 5, it makes his Noble Knight Quasar builds, if that is even a thing, if not already possible, it makes it at least one step possible to execute more efficiently with the existence of this thing and because of its search effect. So yeah, but yeah, I absolutely have no idea what the what's supposed to be the deal with the second effect, with the second equip effect. I would have really appreciated if you could like protect him from both targeting and effect and card effect destruction. That would have been so awesome to see on a level 5 synchro, but no, they blew it. And now for the final synchro monster and the final monster of the Noble Knights in general, that being the Flame Noble Knight Emperor Charles. This is a level 9 monster. I have no idea why, but it's completely generic, has 3000 attack and 200 defense. Okay. And if a monster on the field becomes equipped with an equip card, even during the damage step, you can destroy 1 card on the field. Very good, very good. And during the end phase, you can equip 1 equip spell from your hand or graveyard to discard. Then you can equip 1 Fire Warrior monster from your deck to discard as an equip spell with this effect. The equipped monster gains 500 attack. Why? Why are the... What's so special about gaining 500 attack? But anyway, other than that, I absolutely love how this thing is designed. It's for a level 9 monster, which can be somehow tricky to summon. The effects are actually, especially the second one, are actually pretty alright. And when an equipped card is equipped to a monster on the field, including your opponents, mind you, you get to pop a card on the field, which is so good to pull off. And not to mention that, yeah, it's the definitive boss monster of the Noble Knights now, and I honestly love it. He also has 200 defense, meaning he can be revived with all the other lovely fire support cards that support monsters with 200 defense. So yeah, really nice design mentality there at Konami. And yeah, that would be it for the monsters, and now we will move on to the spell and traps lineup. We received 3 more equip spells and a trap card. Well, in this wave of Noble Knight support. First of which we have Flame Noble Arms Durandal. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can add a level 5 or lower fire monster from your deck to your hand, then destroy this card. And if this card is sent to the graveyard because the monster it was equipped to was sent to the graveyard, you can target a level 5 or lower fire warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except warrior monsters. You can only use 1 Flame Noble Arms Durandal effect per turn and only once that turn. And it's alright. It's limited to fire warriors, which Noble Knights do not have that many in the main deck. So you might you can also search out gear-free monsters as well. Well, actually, not really. All of their monsters are level 5 or higher in terms of the fire attributes. So yeah, you can search out almost all of the new support that the Noble Knights receive, which is, like I said, alright, nothing too spectacular in the long run, but yeah, the option is there, and yeah, some of these are goddamn essential if you want to make a functional Noble Knights deck with the new Flame Noble Knights that have graced the game. And next up we have Flame Noble Arms Hotoclar, yeah, let's call them like that. Well, this card is equipped to a monster. You can target a face-up monster you control, and this turn you cannot declare attacks with other monsters. Also, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, which is nice, really nice. And after which you destroy the card, which is kind of expected with an effect this powerful. Even Twin Swords had the audacity to lower the attack of a monster it's equipped to by 500 in order to make it able to attack twice during each battle phase. But yeah, it does what it's supposed to do. And then we have the floating effect, which allows you to target a face-up monster on the field and destroy it, and you can only use one of these effects per turn. Now, I would have actually loved if the floating effects could actually be procced when the card itself destroys itself due to its own effect. It would make them a lot more easier to use. But sure, you can also trigger the effects in the way that they're intended to be used here, because let's face it, Noble Knights are going to get popped really fast and really often. So yeah, I guess it doesn't hurt in order to have him like that, which is totally fine. And the last one is Flame Noble Arms Josie. Joyeuse, alright, let's call him like that. I really can't pronounce these names like that. When this card is equipped to a monster, you can target a fire warrior monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand, then destroy this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard because the monster it was equipped to was sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a fire warrior monster from your hand, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Simple swarming for a simple floating effect. So yeah, I guess it works. So yeah, it also has a nice recovery effect, which can basically set up its floating effect. So all is not lost. It's essentially a serviceable card in this day and age. So yeah, run a few of these if you feel like it, and if you don't have enough recovery for your warrior type monsters. And the final card we have is Oliphant Horn. It's a trap card which allows you to activate only one of these effects. It allows you to banish an equip spell from your field or graveyard, and you can destroy a card on the field or destroy a Roland monster you control, then special summon up to 3 fire warrior monsters from your deck in defense position whose total levels equal 9. But their effects also, you cannot special summon the monsters until the end of the next turn, except warrior monsters. You can only activate one Oliphant Horn per turn. This thing with their effects, they're supposed to be say that their effects get negated, but I guess Mr. Alan Mac 95 did some sort of a typo here, but I won't judge him. He does this all the time. So mistakes happen to even the best card designers out there. So yeah. Anyway, what do we have here? Well, the Roland part of the effect refers to Flame Noble Knight Roland, which is a monster in their very first wave of these Flame Noble Knights, and this now basically makes them essential if you want to play this card to its full extent. But otherwise, I would not think that this card is particularly worth it, because the first effect is more than enough to basically make it a very nice and quick pop effect. So if you have room for it, I'd suggest running 1 or 2 Rolands with 1 or 2 of these in order to trigger the second effect as well. But yeah, it's a okay-ish card if anything. And with that, we have finished up with Noble Knights, and yeah, we only have one more archetype left to go. Now for the last archetype of this volume, we have Dark Lords, who will also have received 5 cards worth of support, and this won't take very long. Dark Lord of Pleasure and Dark Lord of Delight, despite having a very appealing artwork, they also have very weird effect design going for them, and that's all I'm going to say. Dark Lord Nergal has the special summoning condition, which caters to the Dark Lord spell and trap recycling, like we've seen in the original reviews, so it keeps that tradition up. So yeah, it's also a nice level 8 if you want your trade-in targets. So yeah, you can go for that. And then we have Lucifer, Dark Lord of the Morningstar, which is their new level 12 fusion monster with 4000 attack and defense, requires 3 Dark Fairy monsters, and he's basically the definitive boss monster of the Dark Lord archetype. Yeah, he's a huge beatstick, has fantastic effects going for him, and he can be summoned with Rebellious Dark Lord, which is the archetypal fusion trap for some reason. Why didn't they just make this into just a regular spell card is beyond me, but hey, at least it's something, and you can still summon him the old-fashioned way if you want to, so yeah. Also, Lucifer also implies that you want to run Dark Lord of Morningstar, who is a level 11, I know, but still, it's worth it for the benefit you get by summoning Lucifer. And that what does it for this edition of Archetype Rematch. 7 cards are in Volume 5 already. I'm just waiting for 53 more, and Volume 5 will be on the way. I'm perfectly fine with these new support lineups, especially of FRIGHTFUR's, FLUFFALs, and Dark Lords. And I would have to say that my least favorite are the Egyptian Gods and JINZO, because those are the most schizophrenic. Okay, JINZO is a lot more schizophrenic than the Egyptian Gods, but at least the Egyptian Gods had a clear goal in mind, which was boosting the Winged Dragon of Ra for no apparent reason, when they could just flat out retrain him. But still, it's fine for what it is, and yeah, I'm still waiting for Fortune Lady support. I mean, I would really like to see some new Fortune Ladies added to the game, with their last support wave, which were the Fortune Fairies from the anime, and some of the additions to the main Fortune Lady engine, and especially with the addition of the Synchro Monster. It really showed us that Fortune Ladies really can have a nasty, and can become a really nasty extra deck vomit machine toolbox. So yeah, I would personally like to see maybe a fusion monster of the archetype, perhaps a contact fusion, so we can perform Fortune Lady Lights effect really easily, since you can just send them to the graveyard. And yeah, I know it wouldn't count, but you could perhaps make the fusion monster gain the effect that you can proc Fortune Lady Lights effect, because it would be so good to have that effect available on the fly. Special summoning a monster from the deck is just so much of a good effect. And why stop at fusions? You can maybe give them a Link monster. Well, Link monster is a bit of a harder thing to swallow, since we're approaching fast approaching into the Master Rule 5. Or perhaps maybe an Xyz monster, perhaps something akin to future number 0 Utopic Future, since aligning 2 Fortune Ladies of the same level can be a bit of a hassle with their constant level shifting effects. The possibilities are there. All that that is needed of Konami is to find the perfect balance of effect design, and which would then correlate to their playstyle, which would be nice spellcaster swarm ability, draw power, and of course the level shifting effect, which is not something that is most commonly used as a defining gameplay gimmick of Fortune Ladies, but it's still there as a way to describe to someone how Fortune Ladies are generally played. And yeah, bottom line is we need more Fortune Lady support. Focus more on the extra deck. What we have in the main deck now is more than enough to make it a very competitive spellcaster spam deck. Now all we need is a very nice extra deck for these lovely gals, and I'll be sure to feature them on our Archetype Rematch ASAP when they announce them. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next volume whenever might that occur. Maybe in 3 or 6 more months, I am not sure. But anyway, I'll see you all and have a good day. Peace.